everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and it looks like it's that time of year again. And that time of year that I'm talking about is that once a year anime feature that I do on my channel. So all the people that like video games and anime, well, they'll definitely get a kick out of this one, while all the people that don't care for anime but like video games, well, they probably won't click on this video. But that's totally understandable, of course. So anyways, the first anime we're going to be taking a look at here is Cutie Honey, which was released in 1973. And interesting to note, it was actually one of the very early magical girl animes. It wasn't the first, but it was one of the first. But in case you don't know what the first one ever was, that happens to be one called The Secrets of Ako-chan. Now originally I was going to review that one, but I was only able to find one episode online, and well, can't really do that. So I figured that the show Cutie Honey would be a pretty appropriate place to start for this year, so anyways, let's finally start talking about the anime itself. So it begins with our main character, Honey Kitsuragi. She's a Catholic schoolgirl who likes to skip classes and even likes to pull pranks on her teachers. So after she ditched class and running away from her teacher, she gets a voice call from her father onto her necklace telling her a bunch of things like saying how she can transform and that he also needs some help. But along the way she ends up running into a reporter guy named Sadie. And the reporter guy ends up following her because he ends up seeing her in the middle of transformation, and usually that involves, taking all her clothes off, so he ends up being like a horny horn dog and follows her. But when she comes back, there's a whole bunch of robbers there that come from a gang called the Panther Claws, and they happen to be the main bad gang within the show. So after she takes them all out, she ends up seeing her father, and her father is actually killed. But before he was killed, he ended up leaving a very important message behind for her. So in the message he explains that she's actually not an ordinary human girl, she's actually an android, and she has the ability to transform into different things. So some of these examples are Hurricane Honey, Misty Honey, Idle Honey, Flash Honey, Fancy Honey, and Cutie Honey. And just from the title of this show, Cutie Honey is the main one, since it's her more iconic look anyways. But it also explains in the message that there is something hidden inside her that the Panther Claws really want. Because with that thing that's inside her, they can actually make an endless supply of gems. And of course, there has to be world domination thrown in there. So Honey wants to take out her revenge by killing all the Panther Claws because not only did they kill her father, but also because, they're all kind of after her. And because Seiji witnessed the whole thing, he ends up wanting to help her out, and of course he even brings his brother Junpei and his father Daibon into it. And as the series goes on, they all taking a liking to her. And the Panther Claws try to make a new enemy to fight against Honey, and to wreak havoc over the city. So just like a lot of early animes, all the episodes are pretty self-proclaimed, and it's a pretty simple story that works fine. But when it comes to watching these types of shows, I kind of expect that sort of thing. So anyways, that's all you really need to know about the story here. I mean, it's very simple stuff that's very easy to understand, but is at least entertaining. Because I still find that the humor in this show is still pretty good. And some of the situations that happen are pretty crazy. Now, before we move on and start talking about the other things, if you've seen my two previous anime features that I've done, then you know I've done two other ones that were made by Go Nagai, such as Devilman and Mazinger Z. And this show is very similar to both of those in a lot of ways. So anyways, now let's take a look at the animation, and all I have to say here is that it actually does look pretty good for the time. I mean, it looks pretty much exactly like the other two shows that I mentioned, but only that this one is much more bright and colorful, I find. Which does work fine, since this show is a bit more lighthearted. Now, of course, I'm not saying it's entirely lighthearted and cheesy, because it does have some pretty dark moments, especially with some of the enemies. But it does look and animate very similar to the other two shows. But overall, there's not a whole lot that I can say that I already haven't said before. I mean, it does look good, and I really don't have any complaints about it whatsoever. Now as for the music, well, I do think it is good and it does suit the show well, but it's not super memorable, but I do think it does work for what it is. But the only song within this entire show that I found to be quite memorable would have to be the main theme. Mainly because it's catchy, and of course you do hear it very often. But I would rather have music that is good but not super memorable than music that is like completely terrible. So for what it is, the music does work fine. Now, as for the voice acting, now I'm pretty sure we all know the drill by now if you've seen any of my other stuff, because this one is only in Japanese, and for the most part I really can't tell if it's really good or bad voice acting, but from what I can tell, which is not very far honestly, it does sound fine, and of course I don't have really any complaints about it. It's not like any of the voices made me want to bash my head against a brick wall, so I think we're all good here. So now, this is something I haven't done in a while. If you've been on my channel long enough, you know that I actually got rid of the score system on my channel, at least for my video game reviews. But I decided that for the anime feature, since it is something I only do once a year, I decided that I'm gonna keep the score system here and only leave it here. I don't know why, but I think it kind of works better. I don't know how to explain it really, but anyways, let's get back on track here. So, if I were to rate this one, I'm gonna have to give it an 8 out of 10. So I do find this show is pretty enjoyable. Like, it has some pretty good characters, some pretty good funny moments, and while the overall concept is very simple, I do like it quite a bit. Like, when I first watched this show, I was not expecting her to be like some android robot. I thought she was just gonna be a human being who just happens to transform, but no, there's actually like whole reasoning behind it. So not only do I like that idea, but it's also pretty innovative for a magical girl anime. So if you like going into the classic stuff, you really can't go too much wrong here, but I will be honest, from that one episode I did see from The Secrets of Ako-chan, I can say that I don't know if I'd be able to tolerate it for very long because that show was kind of annoying and also I just really wasn't interested into it there, but it definitely does have its place still. But that's just my thoughts on seeing that one episode, but as for Cutie Honey, I have to say, it is actually quite enjoyable. Although I am quite curious to see what the manga is all about, considering that if you ever read the manga for Devilman, it was actually quite different, and not only that, but it was actually pretty fucking awesome. So that being said, this is definitely a pretty good anime for the magical girl genre, especially for a very early one.